This has been a really volatile week, not just in terms of markets, but headlines, markets to the upside. As a VC that's just heard all of that from our program and sat through a week like this, what's your experience of the week been? What's your takeaway from this week's news cycle?
I mean, NASDAQ is up about 10% this year, right? So in some sense, this is good news. But at the end of the day, at VCs, we invest in early stage technology companies. For us at Lux Capital, specifically, we invest in the intersection of technology and sciences. And this is a great time to be building those companies. Great talent is becoming available. They're starting companies to solve real world problems. Think about physical security. Think about saving lives, all the shootings and gun detection technology, for example, that we've invested in, drug discovery companies, automation, autonomy, bringing manufacturing back to the US. So regardless of what sector you look at, right now, there's interesting companies are getting founded and invested in. And the good thing is that nobody's looking at exits, for these companies in the next year or two. We're just making sure these companies are fully funded and are able to create great products and take them to market.
Bilal, Caroline and I were reflecting on our weekly Twitter spaces earlier that the headlines on layoffs came right at the beginning of this week. And there's been so many stories from the world of technology that you forget actually throughout it have been some pretty negative headlines, especially those around layoffs, IBM, Spotify being examples. Does that present an opportunity for a venture capitalist like you? Are you kind of putting pressure on your portfolio founders to say, hey, go out there and hire these people, they're on the market?
My inbox is filled with resumes that have come in from people who've been laid off from these companies. And I'm absolutely working hard to get them, hired, some of the best talent hired into our portfolio companies. This is 2 years ago that we told our portfolio companies to raise capital because we sort of knew in some ways that the peak had arrived. We obviously didn't know exactly when, but we wanted them to raise as much capital as they could to be able to survive the long term. And these companies that are sitting on that capital now is not only able to hire these candidates, but also able to acquire some other companies along the way to bring more technology into the mix and bring it to their customers.
Let's talk about hype or not, therefore, because amid some of the concerns and the worries about technology pulling back, valuations pulling back, people being let go, there feels like there's another sort of NFT crypto vibe around AI. Can you tell us about what you're feeling there, Bilal, as to whether you're getting that exuberance? Are we at the dawn of a new internet stage?
I think there's something called the Gartner's hype cycle. So every new technology comes with its own hype. And you just have to sort of live through it and know that there will be ups and downs along the way, and that's okay. There is a lot of noise around AI, but AI is also real. I think, there's something unique that happens with these, chatbots and LLM and other things that have happened, that when you have very large parameters, we're talking about 20 billion parameters or more, you start to see very interesting results. And I think people are now starting to figure out how to utilize them to solve real world problems. So we're seeing, the applications of AI in new industries like healthcare, like education, like in construction, in autonomy and automation. And I think there's going to be real companies built. We're super excited about that. At the same time, just like any other industry, I wouldn't just say that for FTX or crypto. The same thing happened in the world of drones and VR, AR. You have to be just very careful that you build real world companies that are solving problems and creating real value for the customers at the end.
Yeah, and real value is something that's now being questioned, for example, for a big public company like Tesla, which a lot of its big, focused, long-term value is about automated driving. I know that's an area of expertise for you. I know that's somewhere that you've been investing in with some of your portfolio companies and leading that for Lux Capital. Where are we in that overall hype cycle that we were just talking through?
I mean, look, there's some level of autonomy available to all of us. If you can buy a car now, it will do self-driving, it will do lane keeping.
I love it.
It will update, new software will update more frequently. But obviously, Tesla is further advanced than most of the other automotive OEMs out there. But I think automotive and autonomous technology is here. But I also want to add that AI ML, similar technology platforms such as autonomous driving is being applied to other industries as well, right? Distributed sensors are being used to detect guns and weapons at entrances to buildings. AI ML is being applied to looking for threats in those systems. Completely different industry. Company like Evolv Technology is focused on that. completely different than autonomous technology, but using the same paradigms and using some of the same technologies. And in some ways, we call it the peace dividend of the autonomous wars, that all the technology that's getting developed from autonomous cars are going to be used in many other industries and create value elsewhere as well.